Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is 4 o'clock. I call the Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting to order. May I have a motion for the minutes?
So move.
Second, I call the question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. The next committee meeting will be on November 23rd, 4 o'clock, same place. Any addition to the agenda? Seeing none? Okay, so I will go to the first item. A review of accessible parking at city facilities. Any new information to the report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to provide an update through you to committee that in the past month, 5 additional city facilities have been upgraded with implementation of van accessible pavement markings. And staff are available to answer any questions.
Any questions? Michael?
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, my question originally was going to be, of those that were reviewed in 2022, was there any on the priority list that will be done first? And you've just mentioned there's some that have been done first. Could you, if you have the list in front of you, could you just read out the names of the ones that were enhanced?
It's on page 714.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, certainly, if you reference PWT 14, the ones that have been recently completed include Brighouse Park, Fieldhouse and Caretaker area, Gateway Theatre, both the north and south parking lots, the Richmond Curling Club, and the Library and Cultural Centre.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions? Any discussion? Do you move of the recommendation?
So move.
Moved.
Second.
Second. So call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on. Item number 2. Contract 6511Q, on-call plumbing contractor. Mr. Lee, any new information to the report?
Through the chair, Councillor Al, nothing further to add to report. I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Michael?
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, just two questions. First one relates to on our page 1718, it talks about the original budget for this or spending limit was 1.5 million over the 5 years, and now it's up to 2.182 million. My question is, how does that compare with like internal plumbing? I know what we're deciding tonight is about the contract for external plumbing contractors, but could you kind of just provide a comparison for how much of the service are we doing in-house and with our own staff and equipment?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, this service is provided by external services. There are no internal services being provided that handle this on-call plumbing contract.
Okay, thanks. Then the follow-up question I have is, and I know I did send you an email and I might have been a little bit late to you, and I'm under the assumption that plumbing companies do pay their workers a living wage. I do have some cousins who work locally. Are you able to confirm if these 3 different companies are living wage employers at this stage?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I was advised that the plumbing contractors are paying a living wage.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Linda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. Well, thank you for the report, and I guess not surprising to hear about the increase given what we've been hearing about, from the development community about the cost of construction. So I just was wondering on our PWT 18, in the financial impact, you said there's none that has been offset through savings in other areas. Just wondering if you could talk about what kind of savings were they in? What areas were they in?
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail.
It's a significant amount of money, that's all.
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, savings were recognized from the project development department through the building improvement program. This saving was realized through supply chain delays. The work for project was not it was not canceled, but rather deferred.
All right, thanks very much.
Okay, any further questions? I have a question. Now, staff's recommendation is that this is to approve the spending limit up to this amount over a 5-year term. So when it comes to an actual project spending, would it still come back to the council for the actual approval of the additional amount, or this is a blanket approval for the spending?
Through the chair to Councilor Al, this is a request to council to increase our spending authority up to the new approved spending limit.
So in other words, we may spend less, but not more, depending on the actual contract or actual work to be done.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll just jump in here. The recommendation before you is just asking for approval for awarding this amount to these contractors pending council's approval of the source of this funding, which would be the operating budget within facilities and project development. So you'll see in the upcoming budget for 2023, there's already an approved budget for 2022, but you'll see in the upcoming budget recommendations for 2023, operating budget amounts that would allow this to be funded. But this is simply under the contractual relationship between the city and these contractors approving the contract award limit up to that amount, pending council subsequent approval of the budget.
Okay, good, very good. Thanks for that clarification. Seeing no further discussion, do I have a
So moved.
mover? Move. Second, call the question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. Moving forward to item number 3, proposed 2023 paving program. Any staff, any new information?
No further information, and staff are available for questions.
Any questions? Michael?
Great, thank you, through the chair staff, just maybe 2 questions. On our page 24, 25, that's where the map is. I note that there's nothing on Sea Island and Mitchell Island. Could you speak to that? Is it not under our responsibility to do the paving in those locations?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yeah, there's just no priority projects in those areas right now.
Okay, thanks. And then the second question I have is an area I'm more familiar with, probably the most, is out in the East Richmond, Hamilton area. There's 2 projects that are highlighted on page 25, one on Westminster Highway and one on Boundary Road. And I know the section that would connect those 2, so like carrying on that Westminster project beyond McLean, going all the way, the S-curve of Westminster Highway to Boundary Road is quite uneven. But I also know there's still project work to happen along there. Is that kind of the main reason why it's not in this priority area? Because it definitely has, like, there's no lines, it's uneven, there's sidewalks that are not complete. Yeah, could you just speak to the space in between those 2?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there are a number of development projects that will be completing some of that paving. There were some works that were recently done in the last month, but there are still more to come with future development in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Do I have a mover for the recommendation?
Move the recommendation.
Move. Second, call the question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. Thank you very much. Moving forward, okay, we have the item 4A, which is a public delegation on non-agenda item. So we have a speaker to this item, Mr. Calvin. Mr. Calvin Kruglia. So may I invite you to come forward? So you have 5 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you.
I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
You did fine. All right, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the committee today. My name is Kevin Krieger. I've been a resident of Richmond since 1996. I live with my family in Holly Park and use the railway pathway at various times each day to walk and cycle for recreational and transportation purposes to and from work, to connect with friends and family, etc. I'm here today to speak to you about safety concerns along this recreation and transportation corridor. I'm going to quickly display a short video for you. The video I'm displaying for you was taken by me while I was walking with my wife around 7:45 p.m. on October 11th in an area of the railway pathway from Francis Road toward Blundell Road. It's one of several areas along the pathway that have similar issues with lighting and safety. As you can see, after the sun goes down, it is very dark and can be very treacherous. Users such as cyclists should have, but often do not have, adequate lighting. Motorized scooters, rollerbladers, and similar users use the path at higher speeds and also have little or no lighting. The foliage in places is thick and makes for good concealment from view of other people. With the days only getting shorter, rain and weather making visibility more challenging, I am concerned for my family and other users' safety using the railway pathway in its current state. In September 2022, I contacted the City of Richmond Parks Department to express concerns about user safety along the railway pathway. In expressing my concerns to city staff, I was told, quote, "The Railway Greenway is an ecological corridor and is intended to facilitate the movement of wildlife north and south. Quote, as an alternative, use the sidewalk adjacent to the railway avenue." And quote, "No one else has come forward with similar concerns." The city's transportation plan objectives are in part aimed at moving people out of vehicles and onto foot, bicycles, and into transit. If this continues to be a priority, the city should be eager to ensure that infrastructure it develops to enable the achievement of this priority are safe and secure for users. The report to the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services Committee on the Railway Corridor Implementation, dated November 2012, is consistent with the transportation plan objective and identified the railway pathway, which was funded in part by TransLink, as a transportation corridor to be used by residents. The consultation with residents in advance of the development noted that, quote, "providing lighting along the path was of significant importance to those who participated in consultations." Safety of the pathway was also identified as an essential element. The city's current website refers to the railway pathway as follows, quote, "a unique and accessible cycling and walking route that connects neighborhoods with points of interest and activities." The City of Richmond enhanced accessibility design guidelines and technical specifications adopted by Council in October of 2018 addresses, quote, "general design considerations to enhance accessibility." These guidelines indicate that, quote, "on paths, install lighting, waste receptacles, benches, drinking fountains, trees and shrubs, plantings, and other pedestrian path elements as part of outdoor recreational facilities." The railway pathway currently has all of these elements except for the only one that contributes to user safety, lighting. The reality, as you've seen from the video I've just shared with you, is that the railway pathway is not safe nor accessible. The path is unsafe for users after dark, and there is zero enforcement of rules along the path by city bylaws. It is unfortunate that after all that has gone into the planning, development, maintenance of the railway pathway, and to encourage people to get out to use it, the city itself is advising residents to use nearby sidewalks instead. To be clear, maintaining the foliage and installing lighting to improve safety won't diminish the value of this area as a corridor for wildlife. Other Lower Mainland municipalities, such as the City of Vancouver, have adopted an outdoor lighting strategy to, quote, "make walking and biking safe and enjoyable, to reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, and to encourage a more inclusive and healthy city." The City of Richmond does not have a similar strategy or a policy that appropriately balances the needs and desires of residents while reconciling the various priorities of the city and deconflicting its own policies. The City of Richmond's community wellness strategy, adopted by City Council in July 2018, contains several focus areas and objectives. Focus area number 4 outlines the objective to facilitate supportive, safe, and healthy natural and built environments. Somehow, however, the railway pathway has been overlooked as it relates to this. The City of Richmond maintains an advisory panel which considers CPTED safety principles and makes recommendations with regard to design, landscaping, and site planning. However, the City of Richmond only refers projects to this panel that pertain to new or renovated buildings. In places such as Abbotsford, CPTED principles are applied to all projects, including pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. The railway pathway, as it is not compliant with CPTED principles pertaining to natural surveillance and which emphasize a need to maintain good lighting and sight lines for security and safety purposes. I've spoken to many other users of the railway pathway and have asked them to endorse a petition to compel the city to address the safety and lighting issues along the railway pathway. I'll present this to you here today. I and other users of the railway pathway are asking the City of Richmond to follow through on its wellness strategy, adhere to its own accessibility design guidelines, and address the safety issues along the railway pathway by installing lighting and integrating other safety enhancements that are consistent with CPTED pedestrian and cyclist safety standards. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any questions to the delegation? Andy?
Sure, and thank you through the chair. Well, thanks for the presentation, first of all. I think we probably all used that pathway or walkway at different times, but I have to admit, I don't know if I've ever used it in the dark. Near dusk, yes. So just a couple of questions. Other CPTED, and you might want to say what CPTED is, because maybe not everybody knows, like if the public's listening, so that is...
Yeah, it's crime prevention through environmental design.
Right. And so in addition to the lighting that you're talking about, and I think you'd probably agree, lighting is one of the most effective CPTED principles for buildings or pathways. So I get that. And it is an interesting point. When you look at different corridors, whether it's out at UBC or different parks or pathways leading from hospitals to parking areas or something, you, I think, would agree that that is one of the most vulnerable places for people. And so I won't get into any incidents that may or may not have happened along the pathway, but you mentioned other CPTED principles that might be applied there. So lighting's an obvious one. Did you have other ones in mind in particular?
When we're talking about natural surveillance, it's, you know, we need to trim trees and make it, you're right, so people can see, you know, there's no areas for concealment of people or things or, you know, and along that pathway, I think, you know, granted, there's areas where that's not the case, but along certain areas of the pathway, large sections of the pathway, for example, this area where I showed the video from Francis Road to really all the way down towards Granville, there's plenty of areas where you can't see from, you know, 12 feet up to all the way to the ground, and that's a hazard, right? People can conceal things there. People, you know, I've seen people come out of those bushes. I don't know what they're doing in the bushes, but I've seen people maybe storing things in there, perhaps living in the bush areas. This is not conducive to an environment that we want to have for people who are getting out to use that pathway.
Well, I'll just say thank you for that information, and you know, I would support if we make a referral to staff to have a look at this. I'll wait and see what other people have to say.
Yes, so thank you for the presentation. I think you raised several good points on the lighting, trimming of trees, and enforcement. Thank you very much for that. I don't know if staff have any comments or response at this point. Oh,
Yeah, I have a question of delegation. What kind of traffic have you seen at night with regard to motorized vehicles? Like bicycles and what have you coming out of whatever?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them come through there. First of all, there is plenty of it. They come zipping down the pathway. I think even during the day, it's quite frequent. But at night, a lot of younger people will use the pathway. They'll have those motorized scooters, and they'll come zipping down the path. And it's hard to see. And when we talk about accessibility, if you're out, you have to, you know, navigate from one transit stop to your home, which is connected through that pathway. If you have any visual impairment or any other type of impairment like that, you're not going to see those people coming through there. You're a sitting duck if you're crossing the pathway. So when we talk about accessibility, this doesn't even come close. So I think, you know, I think what I've heard from a lot of these people who have signed the petition that I have for you here today is that a lot of people, such as yourself, avoid the pathway after it gets dark. But we shouldn't be encouraging that. We should be encouraging people to get out there. And some people don't have a choice. Like I said, they have to ride transit. They have to get to and from work. They have to get to and from their house, from other places, from the store, whatnot. We should be encouraging people to use it. And there's plenty of other pathways around the city that are examples of where we've installed lighting. You know, like for example, the boardwalk area in Steveston, all the way from, you know, the village to Britannia. There's lighting all the way down along that pathway. There's no reason why we can't do the same along the railway pathway or areas where along the railway pathway the lighting doesn't come through from the street. You know, so there's plenty of examples of that.
Thank you. Through the chair, for the record, do we not have a referral on the speed of electric bicycles and what have you going down through there, even in the daylight? Do we not have a referral and reviewing that? Because it is dangerous not only at night, it's dangerous during the day. And correct me if I'm wrong, staff, I thought I did make a referral on the propriety of those electrical carts, which we're seeing a lot more of, electrical bicycles and pedestrians walking, which makes it unsafe for them to have both. Because they go at tremendous speeds down those pathways.
Yeah.
With lights, without lights. Nobody answer that? I'll put it under Parks and Rec then this afternoon. I thought I did make a referral.
yeah, I believe.
I'm not a member of this committee, so I wouldn't have made it here, but it's still on the books, whether it was at another committee. I believe I did at Parks and Rec, but Harold will find out this afternoon. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Krieger.
Okay, Linda?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Krieger. I have used the path a lot, and I have ridden there at night. On my bicycle, I do have lights, but I know what you mean. There are some areas that are dark, and it is a tough thing to juggle, because what I love about the Railway Greenway is that sometimes when you're on it, you know, you feel like you're on a country road and there's nobody there, and it's beautiful with all the trees and everything. But I do believe Councillor McNulty is right. We have talked about the use of e-scooters, e-bikes on the Railway Greenway and other areas in Richmond. So I believe there is a referral that. Mr. Chair, I have a referral ready.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Just hold on, maybe let's hear from Michael.
Thank you, through the chair to the delegate. Just two questions. In your experience there, or talking to some of the other users who signed the petition, for lighting, would the need you figure be all night long, or a portion of the dark?
I think certainly there's some analysis that could be done there. I don't know myself whether the pathway is used 24/7. Perhaps it's used more during the hours where there's transit, for example, and pedestrians are on the pathway with cyclists and other users. I wouldn't be able to speak to that myself, but certainly there's an opportunity, to look at what different types of lighting too, and apply those the design guidelines. To that, but whether the lights would have to be on 24 hours, I couldn't speak to that, unfortunately.
Thanks. And then my second question is, back when I attended UBC, there weren't electric bikes and e-scooters, but there was many paved pathways that did have lighting, and what I visualize here is those kind of waist-high fixtures that broadcast light down and wide to shine it at the ground as opposed to at the people or from high up above and down. But then I now concerned with the real multi-use of these trails and the higher speeds of some of the users, that those might become a hazard, because I know when sometimes you're on a paved path and there's a family or a stroller and you go right off of the trail to kind of curve around. Do you have any thoughts on safety?
The only thing I can say is, that area, for example, in Steveston that goes from the village down to Britannia, if you look at the lighting around, over that little footbridge and all the way down into Britannia, the lighting is, quite substantial light standards that, shine a pretty broad light down along the whole pathway to make it quite visible, which is maybe not the perfect application for an environment like this. And then I've seen, like in some developments around Richmond, newer developments, like you said, the ones that are, kind of, waist high. And I think those type of lights, I think, would probably be best for just when there's pedestrians, right? When there's because when you're moving at high speed, it's hard to visualize, even with some lighting, enough that you can see what else is going on along the rest of the pathway. So I'm not really a lighting expert, so I don't know, but I know that in the areas of the pathway along railway where the trees are not present and the lighting from the roadway comes in, like from Steveston Highway towards Gary Street, for example, it's perfect. It's quite helpful, and it's way less dangerous. And I don't think there's any of those dangerous encounters happening there. So something that helps to strike that balance would be beneficial, I think.
Great, thanks, good answer, thanks.
Thank you. So, Linda, you have a motion?
Yes. Refer presentation and the petition on the Railway Greenway to staff for review of SEPDED principles and other relevant City of Richmond strategies, and report back with an implementation plan. Report back to committee with an implementation plan.
Second.
And would we know how long, through you, Mr. Chair, how long this study would take approximately?
Can staff answer that?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, it would take us a couple of months to pull something together on this.
All right, I know that on 2 Road between Steveston Highway and the dike on the pathway there, they have those lights. And I mean, they're very effective, but that's a very high traffic area, so it reflects. I don't know if that would be appropriate. I just thought I'd mention that. All right, thank you.
Very good. Harold?
Yeah, I'm not on the committee. I just wanted to make a comment. I think we should be looking at other trails as well, and I know would be pretty difficult to cover them all. But 2 years ago on the West Dike between Steveston Highway and Gary Point, my wife and my son saw 2 people robbed on the dike. 2 people came up the dike from the bridge at Mariners Village. As they were walking down the dike, they were some distance in front of them, and they saw it happen. By the time they got there, the robbers had run back across the bridge again and gone. But walking some of these trails at night is not a good idea without any lighting. So, and I've just simply advised people not to walk in the night on the West Dike at night.
Okay, good. So any further discussion on the motion? So I call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carry. So thank you very much for your presentation. Now, item 4, manager's report.
Mr. Chair, there is an update from transportation about a new pedestrian signal. Existing marked crosswalk at the 4100 block of Williams Road. That's between number 1 Road and Fortune Avenue, about mid-block. That has been upgraded to a new pedestrian push-button special crosswalk with overhead flashing yellow lights. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any further reports? Oh, okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, the next meeting is Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services. Call the meeting to order. Would somebody like to move the minutes? And I have a comment on the minutes.
Move the motion.
Okay, I have there was an error, not so much in minutes, but at the meeting, I submitted a report on behalf of Bud Sakamoto that was supposed to be an appendix to my report, and it didn't get included, and therefore it wasn't adopted as part of my report at the city council meeting. So I would like to move a referral that the report by Bud Sakamoto that I presented to the last committee meeting be filed for information.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. As for the minutes then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Thanks. Next committee is November the 29th, 22, tentative date, and the first meeting is an update on the Minoru Center for Active Living. And there's John.
Yeah, good afternoon. Reflecting the original guiding principles, Minoru Center has become a center of excellence to support the active living and wellness needs of Richmond residents. As one of the first facilities to reopen during the early days of the pandemic, the center was an important sanctuary for residents to safely gather and explore leisure activities with others. This exceptional facility has seen its program offerings and attendance continue to grow each month. This was clearly evident in this past July and August when close to 200,000 people came through the doors to play, recreate, socialize, and connect with others in our community. And I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have regarding my report.
Do you have any, Michael?
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, just a couple questions. So I go there regularly. My 3.5-year-old daughter doesn't swim yet, but she likes soaking in the hot pool and going down the slide and watching the big bucket pour on people. But my question relates to some of the other things not mentioned in the report, although I appreciate what is in there. But it's the large rain cloud. It's the shower nozzles. It's some of the lockers and some of the doors to the changing rooms. So I myself have experienced that. Either I haven't seen the rain cloud work in a few years. Almost every time I go to the family stalls for changing or showers, the nozzles aren't working or the doors have a tough time closing or opening. And sometimes the lockers, I'll go between 2 or 3 lockers till I find one that actually takes the quarter. Could you comment at all on either the process to repair or replace any of those pieces of equipment I mentioned?
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Wolf. Most of those, we certainly have experienced some supply chain issues over the last several months. Many of those issues that you have listed there have been addressed. Most of the shower fixtures have been solved. I'm not aware of any more problems with any of the doors on any of the changing rooms. Those have all been fixed. We're also exploring some new options for the shower nozzle. So we've got a couple of prototypes in there, but all the existing ones have been fixed and been repaired. We are still awaiting some parts delivery on the lockers because the coin mechanism doesn't work on a number of them. And we are awaiting the artist who installed the public art, the rain cloud, which has been out of commission for about 3 or 4 months. And so we expect that to be completed in the next month.
Okay, right on. Thanks for those updates. Cheers.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we
Move the
got
recommendation.
No,
all those in, Andy.
yeah, thank you through the chair. I was just waiting for committee members to speak. I did just want to comment on it, like being the Minoru Seniors liaison, just, you know, the bistro and the meal service provided during the pandemic was excellent. But just on the facility itself, speaking as a grandfather, I just wanted to point out some of the things that are really enjoyable to little kids, for instance, and parents. And the family slide where the parents and tots can go down together, I think is a huge hit. The waiting area where the younger people can go who perhaps don't know how to swim yet is fantastic. And then I think Councillor Wolf just referred to it. I think the family hot tub area is also really fantastic for young people. So I think attendance has begun to go up, and I know our family really enjoys it. And so the public should start enjoying it more and more. And check out the seniors center for meals, and the bistro by the pool is really good too. So I think it's fantastic. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion's been called. All those in favor? Contrary? Carried. Next item, the Garden City Lands project update. Alex. There he is.
And I have nothing further to add to the report.
Okay, can't hear you very well.
I'll speak louder.
That's better.
Good afternoon. Thank you. And I'm available, of course, to answer any and all questions related to the report. I have nothing further to add at this time.
Michael.
Thank you. Just a few questions from different parts in the report. Maybe I'll start with the map on the last page there, or page 22, and it highlights with using the red line along Garden City and Westminster Highway. And the red line is where it's proposed planting area, but it requires soil excavation first for removal. Are any of those areas where the red line is, because I know along Garden City there's already plantings, does that mean we have to dig up some of the existing plantings? Or is this on the road side of all of those?
Through to the chair to Councillor Wolf, no existing planting will be removed as a part of the excavation. The soil being removed is between the two perimeter paths. No planting is currently placed in those areas at this time.
Okay, then through the chair, the follow-up on that, I would assume then that contamination is as a result of road runoff as opposed to long-term uses of like the gun range and other contamination issues in the past. So this is mostly from road runoff. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, our QEP, or qualified environmental professional, has identified those soils as being part of the parent material that has been in place on the lands for, I guess, for the last 100 years. In other words, it is not due to road runoff or anything recent.
Okay, wow, it's positive that it's so limited in space where that has to be removed, so that's great. Then my other questions or comments relate to on page 19. It talks about the community gardens and the sphagnum moss. I'm pleased. I attended a few events at the community garden and was there for one of the harvest events. And wow, the amount of tomatoes and the size of some of the produce that came out of those plots this year was incredible to see. Albeit at the start, when they first opened, I was definitely had some concerns because I was able to find debris in the soil on the top. But thankfully staff went in there, cleaned out what they could at the surface. And all those who've been lucky enough to have a plot were very pleased with the whole growing season and the services provided on site. And then my next comment or final comment then is related to the sphagnum moss relocation. It's on the bottom of page 19. I've been very closely concerned about the remaining moss in that area, the sphagnum, the peat soils, which are to be future Kwantlen soil farming area. And I'm very fortunate, I think, that all stakeholders, the city and the contractors to put the soil over, as well as Kwantlen, have taken time, as opposed to just saying, yeah, let's just smother what's there and get on with it. But instead, the cooperation has been quite extensive, and it has caused some delays in actual usage of the land, but for good reason. It's the ecological integrity of the land and the commitment to our city strategies of preserving what we can. And I will admit that as it's described here as phase 1 of that sphagnum moss relocation was pretty much a failure because of how dry it's been since June. Most, if not all, of the transplants have not been successful. And the second phase, as long as we can hold off, let that area soak up again, and then with the sphagnum being healthy, then transplant it to other locations, I think the success over the winter will bring much better results. And also I was able to participate in the Kwantlen, in their greenhouse, in the dome there. They actually have some water tables with cutouts in them, and we've actually planted some of that sphagnum in there just to help give it a head start. So I'm really appreciative of this project, listening to the lands and not just working right away with a blank slate, but utilizing what's there and trying to find some way to rehabilitate the portion of the Garden City lands that is meant for ecological purposes, the eastern half. So those are my comments, and thank you very much.
Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. Well, thank you for the report and the update. It's quite a positive update on the whole. I do have a question on our PRCS 20, about 2/3 of the way down. It talks about staff continue to seek and identify appropriate soil source sites in Richmond. And I know that had been identified as, it could be difficult. And so just wondering how that's going and if you're seeing it as an issue or we're able to get some soil in the time frame that we have for our, projects.
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, we don't have a specific timeline. We're focusing on the KPU portion of the site. We're working with them. And certainly they are welcome of our efforts to develop the north farm field at the KPU farm site, and sourcing the soil from the Polygon Talisman project site. Beyond that, we don't have a specific timeline because it's somewhat tied with the application for approval from the ALC. Should the city be successful with that application and get approval, then we can start looking at developing specific plans to place soil to develop the farm sites throughout the western half of the Garden City lands. We are certainly taking a cautious approach. As Councillor Wolf said, we're listening to the land. We work with the process on site. We try to identify the best sources of soil that meet the specifications outlined by KPU. So in summary, no specific timeline. We're proceeding with caution and looking for the right soil to build this site.
Thank you. And you refreshed my memory. You mentioned the Polygon Talisman project. Now, would that be enough to do? I can't remember I think we had in the report how much soil was going to come out of there, but is that going to be enough to do most of our work, the immediate work?
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, it will certainly provide a significant amount. I don't think it will complete it, but I've directed staff on site to fill, work on placing fill on like kind of a certain section so that at least KPU can focus on, a good solid section of that north field, as we don't have enough soil for the entire north field yet.
Okay, thanks for that. Good job.
Okay, I've got a couple of comments to make. I just want to say it's an excellent report. When we first put soils in there, we weren't too careful, and we had a lot of contamination, plastic and everything else. And I think what staff has worked out now, this is incredible, and I'm really, really pleased to see it. I do have one question that we talked about a long time ago, and that's how to raise the water table. And has anybody looked into that yet? Because as my recollection is that for a sphagnum bog to work, you need the water table about 14 inches from the surface. And so what's happening there? One time we talked about bringing water from rooftops and into the area and trying to keep it there. So where are we with that?
To the chair. We have implemented several measures to maintain the high water levels, namely in the eastern half of the site. We built an underground dam, and we built it from the surface down to what's called the aquitard layer, that kind of elevated, compacted soil that creates that elevated water table in the area. Now, that aquitard layer, though, is not impermeable. So while we can certainly slow down or detain the water, we will always be losing water to evaporation through the summer months, and that is always going to be an issue unless we add water. Now, finding that water, an appropriate and sustainable source of water, would be is the $60 million question. And then I'll close with my response by saying that further study is definitely required for the overall management of the bog portion side, removal of invasive species, encouraging the growth of sphagnum and other native plants, as well as maintaining water quality and volume in that very precise ecotone. Bogs have very precise requirements for water, and that again is the challenge. And we'll be working with QEPs and staff to develop a plan over the coming years.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I remember when I was a kid, probably 10 or 12 years old, we used to go there to cut Christmas trees at the shore pine, and that's all that grew there because nothing else would grow because it was so wet. And that's one of the main ways of maintaining the bog is if it's wet enough, the other species don't grow. So good luck in that, because it's a real problem when we're pumping the water out instead of pumping it in. Okay, that's the report. Any further discussion?
Move the recommendation.
All those in favor? Contrary? Carried. And I think that brings us to manager's report.
Through the chair of the committee, I'm up. So we wanted to announce that we have a new addition to the Park Services team. Effective this Monday, Julian Espino has joined us as the new manager of Parks Infrastructure. Julian's portfolio consists of our construction division, our Parks asset team, as well as GIS. And Julian is here to say a few words.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Through the chair of the committee, thank you for the warm and for the warm welcome. And I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to working with you all.
Okay.
Welcome.
Yeah, everybody's giving you a wave. So that's the way it is on the internet. So thanks very much for joining us. And I'm not going to be here, but I think everybody else, those that are, will enjoy working with you in the future. So welcome home to Richmond. Okay, who's next? Anybody else? Elizabeth?
That's it for today, Harold. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
No, Harold, I got one thing.
What have I got?
Harold, on behalf of the committee here, we're sitting around here. We want to say a huge thank you to both you, Councillor McPhail, and yourself for all your years of helping build parks and recreation in this community and everything that you've done. We're going to sorely miss both of you and your leadership and your dedication and commitment to the community. And so I'd like to move a formal vote of thanks on behalf of the Parks and Rec and Cultural Services Committee to both of you and have it recorded in the minutes. So a huge and sincere thank you.
Yeah, Carol, you guys are going to make me cry. Carol?
Okay. And Harold, Councillor Steves, without, what was it, 5 or 6 of us sitting around that kitchen table about, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago, all committed to saving the Garden City lands, it wouldn't be there. And I don't know about you, but I can't drive by the Garden City lands without smiling. So thank you, not just for your work on this committee, but for your advocacy of saving basically the most important park in Richmond, which is the Garden City lands. So thank you very much for your leadership.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone. And I'm not going to go away. I'll see you again after the changeover. But it's certainly been a pleasure working with this committee. I've been chair of it almost the entire 50 years I've been on council. I think I was chair of planning once, and the rest I started as chair of this committee. So it's been a long time chairing parks, and I've gone through a lot of new people coming and going. They've all retired, and we've got new people now. And I'm really pleased to see the wonderful people that are working for the city right now. And I think the Parks Department is in really good hands. Anyway, Linda, would you like to make a comment as well? It's before I break down.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and just thank you to committee and to staff. I've really enjoyed participating on the committee, and I think we really have, just amazing parks in the city of Richmond. People talk about it all the time, and of course I can't take credit for it all. Harold, you probably can, but no, I've really enjoyed being on the committee, so thank you.
Okay, with that then, it's been moved, we adjourn. We have to go in camera. All those in favor of adjourning? Contrary, carried.